Good morning, everyone. It's going on 8:30 here on the 21st of October, Friday morning. Before I get started, I'd like to request prayer for myself. I'm going through tremendous pain with my foot, and I really don't know for sure what it is. It feels like gout, but I'm not sure. But I know one thing. It really is painful. So I would ask that you would pray that God would give me some relief. I didn't sleep all night. I'm doing this part 3 of the Ark and the Dove just to get my mind off my pain, to be honest with you. Well, last time we talked about how that there was a lot of conflict between the Protestants and the Jesuits in Maryland, and eventually they had to try to put a stop to it because the Catholics were coming in like a flood. And of course, if you hear the Jesuit side of the story, it's all against the Protestants, and I'm sure if you heard the Protestant side, it's all against the Jesuits. Like my dad always said, there's 3 sides to every story: the side that the Protestants will tell, the side the Jesuits will tell, and the side that neither one of them will tell. But we know that the Jesuits are profound liars. There were no jails in Maryland in 1942, 8 years after the landing of the Ark and the Dove, when Captain Ingle was arrested for piracy and treason. He escaped from the sheriff at St. Mary's. The Puritans came against Catholicism with the vehemence, and they made a lot of rules that seemed like they were kind of legalistic of the time. It was trying to get control over the situation. On Sunday, nothing was lawful except to go to church. Absence from church service was punishable by a fine, and in order to prevent backsliding, the constables were enjoined to duly make search throughout the towns for any absentees not attending church. A man could not kiss his wife in public on Sundays. One man did kiss his wife in public on Sunday, and he sat in the stocks for 2 hours for his lewd and unseemly behavior on the Sabbath. Well, this seems a little over the top to us today, but you can't legislate morality. I know that. And but the law is made for the lawless, the Bible says. In 1642, Catholics were disabled from holding office, and Catholic priests arriving in the colony were to be expelled within 5 days. In the same year, William Penn came to America, and so anyway, there was an ongoing battle between the Protestants and the Catholics. Many people have taught that religious liberty began on the soil of Rhode Island with Roger Williams. And so he was proclaimed as the apostle of religious liberty. Williams arrived in America in 1637, but Williams was the most pronounced dissenter from the Church of England. And he came against infant baptism. And there was no orderly form of government in Rhode Island until 1617. But it was no sanctuary for Catholics in Rhode Island because Roger Williams did not agree with the false doctrine presented by the Roman Catholic Church. There were a lot of other people given sanctuary in Rhode Island, including the Quakers. Well, as we move on through the book, we find that the Puritan party began to expand and ascend. And with its rise came just more and more controversies between the Puritans and the Jesuits. Well, there was a lot of suits and countersuits over this issue of freedom of religion and separation of church and state, and especially in Maryland. And of course, in this book, this guy, being a Catholic promoter, lays it all at the feet of the Puritans and makes the Jesuits appear as white as the driven snow again. Well, there was also the Jesuit Baltimore controversy, and it's been misinterpreted a lot of times by different people. The controversy originated in the acceptance of gifts of lands to the Jesuits from the Indians. Well, anyway. Of course, the Jesuits tried to justify the right to hold land that was given to them by the Indians. A lot of the English Jesuits were eager to come to the United States to try to establish their philosophies and their missions programs. And then they established the Jesuit College at St. Mary's, but it didn't get a lot of material support at first. But the school was conducted under Jesuit auspices as early as 1650. A wealthy Catholic left in his will the bulk of his entire estate for the endowment of a Catholic school. Oh, there was a lot also going on in Virginia, and then we get into Leonard Calvert, who was the first governor of the province of Maryland, and he served as governor for about 14 years. Seemed like all these people were related, kind of like in a lot of the churches today. There's a bunch of sisters were relatives of the Calvert family, and so a lot of this was third generation wealth passed down from one generation to another, kind of like the Kennedy family, you know. And anyway, in the year 1649, there was passed by the Maryland Assembly the so-called Religious Toleration Act. And this opened up the doors again to the expansion of the Roman Catholic doctrine in Maryland. Well, there was a large influx of Protestants also that came to Maryland. So obviously did not make a whole lot of inroads in the Catholicism promotion at this particular juncture. Well, they talk about freedom of conscience, but is it freedom of conscience to put people in an inquisition and torture them if they don't believe what you think they should believe? So they say one thing, they try to tickle people's ears. They say one thing with their mouth and they do something totally different. Do as I say, not as I do. You know, kind of like Thomas Jefferson and his talking about all men being created equal, but yet he had slaves. What a hypocrite. Well, they, in this book, try to point out all of the shortcomings of the Calvinists, you know, just like if somebody was writing a book against the Jesuits, they would point out all of their shortcomings, but we have to remind ourselves that the Jesuits were very sinister. They had been thrown out of about every country, and they had assassinated a lot of their opposition. Well, during the first half century of its history, when there was no outside interference, Colonel Maryland presents the fairest picture that can be found in any of the 13 colonies, says this Jesuit writer. You know. And then we find that the Carroll family had a proud record in Irish history. They were actually called the O'Carrolls, but they changed their name to Carroll family. Until the Revolution, until the Revolution in 1688, the sufferings under Elizabeth and Cromwell were in affluent circumstances and respected. Charles Carroll was 28 years of age when he came to America. He became a champion of the Catholic colonists. He was a high-spirited young attorney who was trying to protect the property and civil rights of his patrons and his fellow Catholics. Just think of all the land that this man owned, you know. He had acquired lands in the province, and he named the different tracts of lands after the family. One of them was called Carroll's Forest. That was 500 acres. Elo Carroll, 1,000 acres in Baltimore County. Litter Luna in the same county, a tract of 400 acres. New Year's Gift was a place known in Elk Ridge. It obtained other tracts of about 2,000 acres. And then Sin Malera, an estate of 10,000 acres. So he became the largest landowner. And him and George Washington were really tight. And it was almost like George Washington was at his bidding. And there were a lot of immigrants that came to Maryland from Ireland who were Catholic. So anyway, I'm going to keep this to about 30 minutes because I'm not feeling too good. The first Charles Carroll died in 1720, leaving his son Charles II of his name and line. And of course, he was Jesuit-trained attorney. And the second Charles Carroll has often been referred to as the Charles Carroll of Annapolis. Anyway, Dr. Charles Carroll was elected a vestryman in the established church and a member of the assembly. And he was very active in a lot of areas in promoting the founding of this country. And I'm not going to go into all the detail. Like I said, I'm not feeling too good today. I think we'll stop there for now, and next time we're going to get into a little bit more about Charles Carroll and his involvements in the founding of this nation. God bless.